fans, your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Oh, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, on a Monday. Lots to discuss. Moves already happening in the NFL and the Olympics. Team USA, we're currently in third in medal counts. Also, the NBA All-Star Game. We're all about it here on the Snake Sports Talk Show live in Denver. Wherever and however you may be watching and listening, thanks for making us part of your day. We have a stacked show for many reasons. Number one, former NHL Center Tyler Johnson is going to be joining us. Back-to-back Stanley Cup champion. Also, former defensive end Dion is going to be joining us. We have so much, and also MLB Scout for over 30 years. Pat Murphy is going to be joining us here up and onto the show. I'd love to pick his brain with today's Major League Baseball and just, what we're seeing, what could be coming up and out of it. I really am excited about this one, guys. So first of all, I want to start off with this. Now, many people may not have paid attention to what's happening right now, but the NHL, it's such a fun, again, I love watching the league. I love watching this game and watching the Olympics. Now, our Americans, of course, have been playing their arse off. Okay, they've been training up for it. And right now, U.S. is currently in third with 17 medals. And the ones leading the way are the Norwegians. Okay, and they have shown out. Now, they mostly, as you think about all of the European countries in the region, is they are very particular of a lot of sports. Curling, skeleton, luge, and bobsledding, even just, the skiing and snowboarding competitions. And listen, I was really hoping for multitudes of reasons, okay? I was really hoping and pulling for Chloe Kim in the snowboard challenge in the half pipe. Unfortunately lost it to Korea and got into second and got a silver medal. But it's hard, it's tough. You're putting a lot of work on your body and training almost day and night just to be perfecting a lot of these moves. All of these Olympians that have all participated and are all a part of Team USA, I mean, it's hard. Not many people make it into the Olympics. So I was thinking about this because the two teams that I've been very impressed with all throughout this entirety of the tournament have been the men's and women's national hockey team. And now here's the thing. NHL, and this is what was prime. Last year we had the Four Nations tournament. And I'll segue into the NBA here in a bit. But I love the fact that we were able to watch all of these talented players from every region of the country come together and playing a hard-nosed hockey game that gave you lots of entertainment. And so when you watch the Olympics, the only thing which right now doesn't really feel the same is no Russia in this tournament because of obviously the situation that happened to the Russian national team. Okay, it was PEDs. There was a lot of things that were up and involved. But listen, Russia always felt like the team that people, they don't despise, but they know they were pretty much the enemies on the ice. Okay, they had a lot of great players. Alex Ovechkin, Evgeny Kuznetsov. They have a lot of Nikita Kucherov. So many great players out of Russia. And with them not being in the tournament, now you can kind of see this thing segue a little bit differently. But I thought it's been fun watching this, the entire Olympics and watching mostly the hockey team, because the women's hockey teams, I mean, it's Canada and US. I'm sorry, but everybody else is getting blown out of the water here. I mean, Canada and the US women's national teams, that is the championship. And we all can't wait for that to come around, because now they're going to be playing for gold. And that's what we wanted. It's a David and Goliath story every time when we watch this. But for the men's national hockey team, here's what I've noticed that I think, which is also interesting, because to me, I look at it this way. The teams that are right now in the position to being the top tier teams, because to me, if Russia was in this thing, here's what I would have had: Canada, US, Russia, and honestly, Finland. Yeah, the Finnish, they've had some really good players. Mikko Rantanen, Jussi Saros. The Finland team are very talented. And so when I look at all of just the teams, the problem with some of the other teams like Italy and Slovakia and Latvia and a lot of other teams, I mean, Switzerland, they played well. But the problem is, I mean, Switzerland, they lost their one player. And this is also the gamble that the NHL is also taking, because number one is you got all these NHL stars with star power representing for your country. And Kevin Fiala, the other day when I watched against Canada, he's out for the season with probably a torn ACL. And so that's a hard gamble. But Germany, listen, they're low-key underrated. With Leon Draisaitl, Team Stützle, like these guys, they play well. But you do understand that it does come to star power, unfortunately, when you're playing in the Olympics. I mean, if you don't have that many star power, like what the U.S. national team has, Jacob Slavin, Brock Nelson, Jack Hughes, Connor Hellebuck. I mean, you've got a lot of star players up and onto this roster from top to bottom. And if you don't have that, you're not going to survive. I mean, Canada, forget about it. Mark Stone, Jordan Binnington, Logan Thompson, and then not to mention Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby. Like it's fully loaded. That's why everybody else, like Latvia and Slovakia, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you, even the Czechia team, which I usually kind of see as they're interesting, I thought they would have at least kind of pulled through, but they're not even a match for themselves either. So ultimately, when you think of the Olympics, it's not just cherry picked. It's all but a phone call. But the bottom line is that if you don't have the star power, you're not going to make it through. And again, all of the representative countries, and this is what's fun about this, because we saw this with the Four Nations tournament. All of your favorite stars representing for their home country and then playing in the hopes of bragging rights, we're the best nation that produces the great hockey players. That's really all that it comes down to. You think about the Russian team from Detroit. You think about, Joe Sakic and Nick Patrick Waugh, and Peter Forsberg in Colorado. You're thinking about, the Pittsburgh Penguins back-to-back championships, Tampa Bay's back-to-back championships. You're thinking about all of that. And that's all that comes down into play. But I'm excited about this one. Again, I would have felt different if Russia was in this tournament, because then I already know right off the bat, those are my four best teams. And probably cherry pick Germany and maybe even, a little bit of Switzerland and Czechia. But as of right now, this is the four that we have. Okay. And listen, I'm good with it, but I think it's all going to come down to US and Canada, as usual, bragging rights to be the best country that produces a lot of their talent. And not only that, but the US, who has so many of the international talent because of being in the National Hockey League. So, yeah, So this is a perfect transition because here's the thing. The NBA this weekend, we had a fun tournament. Okay. I will say this. The NBA for the last few years, the All-Star game is a joke. Like in the last few years, it's been a joke. And to me, the NBA, what they have created and what they've also instilled, they've had 3 teams, the Stars, the Stripes, and the World Team. I think honestly, what they're trying to incorporate, they watched the NHL last year. Okay, this is what I'm really, really thinking is the NBA and Adam Silver watched Gary Bettman in the NHL put together the Four Nations tournament and saw how big their viewers skyrocketed just because of that tournament. The other thing is, you look at the relationship, the healthy relationship that they have with the players, the college programs, especially when you are playing, okay? When you're playing in college and even in the NIL, like there are lots of different focuses that go into this. So you're playing for all of that. And I just think, in my opinion, with the NBA, they need to get better with college hoops. That is the one relationship. They haven't been able to create a strong, consistent relationship. They just haven't. So now, in this predicament, the one thing that the NBA has to do is you got to respect a lot of these talents. And at the same time, the international pool is only going to get bigger. Okay, Victor Wembanyama and Giannis and a lot of other international stars are overtaking the NBA. Sorry that it kind of bursts a lot of people's bubbles, especially for our domestic stars. That's the truth. You're never going to end up getting into another LeBron James. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. But you're looking at Anthony Edwards. You're looking at Tyrese Halliburton. You're looking at SGA. You're looking at a lot of future stars. But here's the thing. SGA represents for Canada. Okay, so you're looking at the international poll. That's what's one of the biggest takeaways of this. I mean, I've already watched the Four Nations tournament in the NHL, and that was a huge hit. Huge hit. And everybody's all like, man, why didn't we think about this? Because the fact of all of the great players who all representing for their own countries, right? But coming together and putting together, like, the games felt and they looked like they mattered so much. It feels a lot like home field advantages in the NFL or even in Major League Baseball. They felt like something. They were playing for in the importance and the bragging rights. So that's one of the things that I just felt like, the All-Star game, it just felt bland. There still needs to be more work, but you got to understand it's an international wave. Like Wembanyama and Giannis and Jokic, they're all here, okay? And all of our domestic stars, I want to know exactly a lot of these guys. I want to be able to get to know them, have a personal relationship with these kids when they come out in college ball. And I don't know when this will be fully fixed. I don't expect it to be fixed overnight, but I do expect this to be exciting and honestly mean something. I like that they shed down the timing for a lot of these games, and it didn't feel like the scores were getting ran up. So I kind of like that, but they're not quite into full fruition just yet. So we got a lot to talk about here on our President's Day edition of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Right around the corner, 2-time Stanley Cup champion Tyler Johnson is going to be joining us here. We're going to be talking a lot about the state of the Olympics and, of course, what to expect here in the NHL with the trade deadline around the corner. So do not miss out on that. Well, folks, as we said, this is the final year of 2026 for all of sports. But free agency and more. Major League Baseball pitchers and catchers report, NHL, NBA season undergoing, and the Olympics as well. And not to mention the FIFA World Cup. It's been such a huge blast to start up 2026. And the only place to get you geared up for all things sports is Payday Fantasy, your number one go-to player pick 'em out. All you got to do, sign up, free $5 entry bonus just by choosing us and signing up. And then best of all, get a 100% deposit match bonus of up to $100 just by using the promo code SNAKE, SNAKE. That's all you got to use for your 100% deposit match bonus of up to $100. That is the promo code. Check out Payday Fantasy for yourself and download it on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. Sign up, pick the player, pick the outcome trajectories, sit back and relax and get paid with Payday Fantasy.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Man, the Olympics have been so much fun to watch, including both the men's and women's hockey team, as we send our luck to the women's national hockey team going in for gold. They've been playing so tremendous, and we got the bracket breakdown. So to join us, two-time Stanley Cup champion Tyler Johnson joins the program. All right, Tyler, I mean, our men's, they're out there, they're playing. And look, I was saying this at the beginning when the Olympics started, and there's a few things that come into play. Number one is you have a lot of star power because of these players in the NHL. So it is tougher for some countries like, Slovakia and Latvia and even Italy, to at least compete up with a Canada, a US, and even, Finland. They've been playing tremendous thus far. But then there's also, to me, I would have felt different had the Russian team been here, but because of these complications and what happened, they were unable to perform here in this Olympic tournament. So what have you thought about the Olympics thus far? And seeing as the U.S. is now the second seed, I'm already thinking it's already going to be Canada and U.S. That's really what the picture is going to be painted.
I think it's great that the NHL is back in the Olympics. It's a long time coming. It's something that, the players always wanted to do. They just could never kind of figure out the other end of it. So for them to be able to be back, and I know US, Canada, kind of your powerhouses, but a lot of these countries can win. That's what kind of makes the Olympics fun and different. It's one game. A goalie stands on his head, lucky goal, whatever it may be. I really do think there's probably, 4 or 5 countries that could theoretically win, which makes it exciting. But, it's a really cool thing to be able to see some of these good players playing together. You got to say this Canada team from line 1 to line 4, it has to be the best team ever created as far as skill goes. So, it's just phenomenal to watch, the skill that they play at, the way that they play. US is the same. Some of these goals that are scored are just so pretty.
And it's funny because, seeing it on a national scale like the Olympics, and I loved what, because I was discussing this about what the NBA is trying to do with their all-star game, because it was just so bland. I felt like they looked at last year with what Gary Bettman put together with the Four Nations tournament, because of its big turnout and all these players that you had the pleasure of playing with and against. They were playing for something. And when I look at the NBA, it's like, I'm not getting home court advantage. I'm not getting, bragging rights, because the international pool is so big now that we got to think about our domestic stars after LeBron's retired, Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. So I feel like the NHL is doing something right. It's not quite perfected itself, but they're taking the right steps. That's helping a lot more for the league. and even for its players, for many years to come in their talent pool, right?
For sure, and that's what the players had always talked about when they said that we weren't able to go to the Olympics. That was the number one thing that the guys wanted to do. We were willing to give up certain things in our CBA just for us to be able to represent our country. And unfortunately for the last, I think, was it 4 years, for Olympics, we weren't able to do it, but at least they were able to figure it out this time. And hockey players have a lot of pride. We want to play for our country. It's something that's just a very special thing. A lot of us are lucky enough that we get to play, world championships or world juniors when we're younger, and you get to play for, Team USA, Canada, Sweden, whoever it is. And it's fun. It's an exciting time. So I'm really jealous I'm not in the Olympics. I think they did a great job with the Four Nations tournament. Like you said, it just kind of got a lot of momentum. Obviously the fights and everything caught a lot of people that maybe weren't hockey fans, but put it on their radar. So it's exciting. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. Obviously, if US and Canada end up playing, there's going to be some fireworks, and I think everyone's ready for that.
Yeah, and I feel like right now that's the bragging right tournament right up from there, the championship and bragging right. Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, you mentioned about it with how stacked this Canada team is. I can't think of any guy that can be that stoked and excited to coach them other than your coach, John Cooper. Like when you think about that, like when you played around and having coached by him, what is the thing you can describe about John Cooper that sets the tone, breaks everything down, and something that obviously being in the big stage of the Olympics of what he can do with all this star power without almost feeling like the jitters of, God, I get to coach this kid, I get to coach this kid. Like, what is it that he brings that's so unique and especially so, I would say, just so wonderful to watch as a coach?
Well, I think the biggest thing with Coop is he's very confident. He has that swagger, he has that about him. He knows he's a good coach, and rightfully so. He's proved it time and time again. So I know he's excited to coach for Canada. I know coaching these guys are a dream come true, but he's not going to be the excited little kid. He's still going to coach. He's going to work hard. He's going to do his thing. And I think that's what makes it so amazing. And he listens to the guys. It's not a dictatorship when he coaches, and that's way different than a lot of people. And he likes to try to get everyone involved, tries to see, what you're thinking. And that's why, on a big stage like this with a lot of good players, I know that all these guys are used to being heard and, have their thoughts and feelings. And Coop's really good about, kind of making sure everyone's in their right spot, in the right role, contributing to a team aspect. And, I like what they're doing. They're obviously playing very well. And, I think Coop's a big part of that. And then also just the talent pool they have in Canada there is pretty tremendous.
So you've had the pleasure of being a back-to-back Stanley Cup champion. And with the reign of dominance that the Tampa Bay Lightning had, you're watching currently with, the Florida Panthers and what Paul Maurice, I even called this initially when he got hired. I said, this has to be the most underrated hire because of a few reasons. What he's been able to do with Winnipeg and the star power, and then bringing that to Florida, where you had Connor Hellebuck as your netminder. Now you got Sergei Bobrovsky. You're basically going into a different atmosphere, but bringing in similarity to what you had in Winnipeg, but even taking it further than what you had. I watched up in Tampa, and I really thought this was going to be the end for John Cooper. Not quite. Do you feel like there's some unfinished business with this Tampa team, knowing that down the street you got the Florida Panthers, who were back-to-back Stanley Cup champions? Like, because it sounds to me like there's a silent kind of bragging right in just the state of Florida when it comes to Florida hockey.
Well, yeah, they're always been the biggest rival, for us. So when I was first there, obviously Florida was not a very good team. But then, like you said, they got Maurice, they got some players, they got Tkachuk, and, kind of just changed the way that the team was built and how they were doing things. And, we had some really good playoff series against them. I think that last year that we won the Cup, that first round against Florida could have been the greatest round of playoff hockey I think I've ever seen, witnessed, been a part of. that was the toughest round, and that was in round one. So we knew they're a good team. We knew what's going to happen. Obviously, they win back to back, and they're just kind of a powerhouse. Guys want to play there. You get guys like Marchand kind of signing for less just to be there. And I think it says a lot about, one, guys want to live in Florida, and two, just the atmosphere and the culture that they've kind of built up there is much like what we built in Tampa. And I think it's such a good thing for hockey just to have that rivalry. And I know when people, put the game on between Florida and Tampa, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a battle. Guys look forward to it. You circle it on the calendars all year. And, I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I know Florida is a little dinged up this year. They're a little bit down, but if they can sneak into the playoffs, I wouldn't want to go against them. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
It's funny, seeing the shakeup into the Atlantic Division this year, because I'm seeing the work that Martin St. Louis putting together in Montreal, and I'm seeing a lot of, the other teams kind of fight their way in. Some of them that we were so used to watching dominate are kind of having a little bit of some hot and cold streaks here and there. But it's got to feel good to see Tampa Bay back up and on top, and And you still got the familiar pieces, even with some new additives. I mean, Jay Gensel and a couple others. I mean, what's the expectation right now you look at? Because now we're going into the trade deadline after everything is all said and done, and there's going to be moves to make. Are we expecting some moves to kind of help to powerhouse Tampa a little more, to kind of get them back into that contending type of run that they had in the past?
Well, I think you could argue that they're already in that contending run. I mean, they have a team. They just reloaded really well. They've had some young guys that I think people probably overlooked a little bit and didn't think they're maybe going to do as well as they did. I mean, a lot of their defense right now throughout the year has been hurt. McDonough's been out a lot, Saranac, Hedman, and they just had young guys step up. And then you have, a Darren Radich having basically the season of his life right now. And so they just have guys step up in the right time. And, that's Julian doing his thing and finding the good players that he can put in the system and trust them. And they kind of overcook in the AHL, which I think is a great thing. They have a great development system there. And then once they're ready for the NHL, Coop does a great job putting them in the right spot. So I expect Julian to probably make some moves. It's just how he is. He wants to win, and I really appreciate that about him. Like, he did whatever he could to make our team better. And even if that was maybe, sacrificing a little bit in the future as far as some of these picks, depending on some of the GMs, they may not want to trade those picks. But Julian was always hey, I'd rather win now than hope for later. So I expect them to do something. What that is, I'm not really sure. I mean, they're getting healthy. They're getting guys back. They obviously have guys in the ropes. I could see them maybe bringing in maybe another like third liner, fourth line guy, energy guy, kind of a shutdown type thing. I think that's what they kind of need a little bit more so than anything else. And then you have Vatsy as a goalie who's the best in the world. So, I mean, they have all the pieces. They have all the stuff. It's just about staying healthy, which they're getting healthy now. A couple guys not going to Olympics, but, hopefully get them back here soon, and then they'll be ready for a good run.
A question I'm curious before we let you go, because, I mean, so for me, obviously, Vegas born and bred kid who now lives up in Colorado. And I mean, the minute that we got hockey in Vegas, it was just such a game changer. And now we got a strong culture there. So during this time, when you won your first championship in 2020, I got to know, because many people, we all watched it as a nation and all watched it globally. But during the global pandemic, I cannot imagine, Tyler, being in a neutral site, and then at the same time being together with your teammates, being together with your coaches, and then having to kind of block out the outside stuff. And then at the same time, because that had to have been hard for you personally, and even for your family and for many friends of families. What was that atmosphere like at that time to overcome that kind of global pandemic, but then to hoist the sweet taste of victory, hoisting the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a very different time for a lot of people all over the world. It was very unknown. And for us, we didn't even know if we were going to have a season. I was a part of the NHLPA, so I was on a lot of the calls basically every day, trying to figure out if we are going to be able to have a playoff, if we're going to be able to have a bubble. And I'll be honest, I probably said 1,000 times, there's no way this is going to happen because of what everyone was relaying the information to us. And then all of a sudden it kind of came together overnight, which was pretty wild. And so for us to be able to have that experience and that, chance was huge for us. And we had a good team. We were playing well. We wanted to get in there. And then once you get into the bubble, again, it's very unknown. They said there's going to be maybe a little bit more fun stuff to do, a few weeks and your family can come, things like that. Obviously, it didn't turn out that way just because we wanted to make sure that we were going to make it through the playoffs without any problems, without, anything come up where we'd have to get shut down. So, it was a different time. It wasn't the most fun. I'll say that. And we're really fortunate that we ended up winning. And I always say it's like we won up there. It was way harder the first year to win than it was the second. But that first year, you get a party with your friends and your teammates, but you don't really get your family there. So that was a little bit different. It was nice to be able to win that second one and kind of have more of that normal, celebration. But, we're pretty lucky. We got two different kinds of celebrations that I don't think anyone else can say. And so I'm pretty fortunate for that.
Oh, what a blessing. I mean, only just, the first time you get a chance to win it, but the second go around and to be able to kind of give it a little of like a mulligan of like, man, this is how we want to celebrate it. We want it with our friends and family and such. So, man, what a time it was to, win it a second time and almost three times the charm, but at the end of the day, man, what a time. And at the same time, it was just, I really hope we don't even go through that again. But man, that's quite a testimony through going through that process, being there and still staying strong with your teammates and coaches through that time, man. What a time. Tyler, appreciate you for joining us here up and onto the show. Let's see what the Olympics got for us now that the brackets are there. Go Team USA. We'll see who's got the bragging rights all the way to the end. Take care, my friend.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, shifting on forward, man. Like I said, I think it's so fun watching the Olympics. And not only that, but we get a chance that this year we got the World Baseball Classic. And we've got a great guest with us, over 30 years of MLB scouting. What a tenure. But to join us, to break us down, he was also involved with Willie Tavares and even with Hunter Pence, scouting these guys and making them the players that they are. Joining us, Pat Murphy, up and onto the program here with us. So I want to say, over 30 years. I mean,
yeah,
what a tenure. And just to seeing the talent pool, the level of which, and you've been able to watch, the growth of this sport change in so many different aspects. What kind of goes through your mind when you think of the tenure you've been in this business and in this job, and what it's really like, what you gained from it, from watching it evolve over the years? Like what comes to mind 30 plus years as an MLB scout?
Yeah, it's been interesting. The game has changed a lot since I first started back in 1990. And obviously we've evolved into the game of analytics, and the game has certainly changed from that perspective of how the game's played on the field. I mean, it's just not quite the same. It's different from my youth and my first few years in the game as a scout, as a front office guy with the game is definitely changed. So some of it for the game and some of it from my perspective of being a kind of an old school guy, not so good. It's like I watched, I learned how to play baseball, right? I couldn't hit home runs. So it's like now it's, you got three outcomes, right? You strike out, you hit a home run, or you walk. So that's kind of how it goes. That's what they're shooting for. And, the fans that love to see the long ball, man, they're all in on, right? The old Greg Maddux and that commercial that ran for so long, chicks dig the long ball.
Mm-hmm.
good. For the baseball purists, right? We kind of like seeing guys that know how to do all that. And they still exist to a certain degree. But that's the biggest change for me is just play, sitting back and waiting for the home run as opposed to aggressive of trying to get people around the bases.
So here's the thing, because in your tenure and watching the game as it evolves, as it grows, because you were around at the time when, the Moneyball experiment ended up coming around up in 2002, and how analytics and statistics really changed up a lot of the game. But now we got, launch angle. We now have automated strike zones and pitch clocks. Has that ever kind of come across when you're scouting players and you're scouting talent? Was there ever adjustment that you ever had to make that, looking at these players is like, these guys, they got a different kind of talent, but I could still see the way in which the game is played and how these guys will make it up and into the major leagues?
Well, most all scouts, myself included, they were amateur scouts. We scouted, purposes of the draft in the spring, and then scouted pro ball, minor leagues, even big leagues in the summer. And from the amateur level, change anything that we did, right? Because we weren't, scouts have been using statistics since statistics were on a stat sheet, right? It's like they just kind of repackaged it to, different things, and that's cool. I mean, I get it. Where it did change some in pro ball, right? In amateur ball, if I'm scouting in the spring, I didn't. It's tools, right? You got to scout tools. You got to scout the kids, the families. I mean, that's changed. And the clubs that have changed that and gone more for the draft, they're slacking, right? They're like behind. I mean, it just doesn't work. Now in pro ball, you're comparing apples and apples, right? You've got the AA league, right? So the stats, you can do more with that, and they mean more. Amateur wise, I didn't change a thing I was doing because that's just a bad. And some clubs have done it. Frankly, I'm not going to pile on anybody, but I'm looking for how many World Series rings Oakland has, and I can't count to. So it didn't work, is what I'm saying. They've changed, right? And all that stuff was a great book, but at the end of the day, the two best players on those Oakland teams were Eric Chavez and Miguel Tejada. And Chavez was a high school draft, which is what they were trying to kill. And Tejada signed at 16 years old out of the. Those weren't Moneyball guys; those were scout guys, and they, and it helps when you had Barry Hudson and Mark Mulder already on board, right? Makes Moneyball sound better, but it had to evolve. And hey, God bless them for taking a shot at it, but the proof is in the pudding. And I have 3 World Series rings, and they don't have any, so there's that. So, but the smart scouts. What all the analytics guys are doing, and we called them stat guys back in the day. They took offense to that, right? So they changed their names to the analytics guys as opposed to stat guys. That was derogatory for some reason, but used it. They helped us. I mean, I got a big league player that I signed in Tampa, spent many years in the big game, Austin Pruitt, out of the University of Houston. He was a senior, right? We paid him like virtually nothing, and in the 9th round. If it hadn't been for the stat guys, right, I wouldn't have gotten that guy because I was telling them they could draft that guy, whatever, right? And they were like, hey, how about we take him now? I'm like, I'm not the one doing the picking. Take him now because the analytics guys loved his metrics, and that was the first, right? The pitch FX. They got all kinds of stuff. Pitch FX. He had the best in rates, what they do now. But he had the best pitch FX on his breaking ball of anybody in college. Well, I could tell you if it's from a scout's eye, he has pretty good. They loved it, so right? And he was a big leaguer for a long time, and I tried to give credit to those guys as much as possible, because they're the ones that pushed me into it, right? They pushed him higher, and so the teams that have a good blend of the analytics guys aren't always right, the old school scouts aren't always right, and you blend it in the middle. Those are the guys. Those are the teams that are going to beat you. Teams that have gone too far over the edge, I didn't fear them, right? They're telling their scouts who to go see. Here's a list in your territory, go see them. That's not really scouting, right? I got out off the beaten path and, you work, right? You don't just go see these 10 guys the office tells you to go see, but that's the way it works now a lot.
Man, it's crazy. And you think about it, right? It's like, to me, I want to scout the best player that I know can help our situation in a clubhouse that we know is, one, could either really help and bolster our starting rotation and bullpen, and a guy that can be a game changer in a lineup that can get us up and on base, somehow stretch, the base runners to get us more runs batted in. Because, yeah, you're right. We're in a world of which chicks dig the long balls. In my opinion, I'm like, I care more about driving those runs in because I'm playing a game of inches, because I want to play smart defensive pitching, whether strikeout, ground up, fly out, whatever it is. I want to make it difficult for my opposing offense. But then I'm up and at the plate. I want to be the hardest out that I could possibly be, so it keeps the pitchers' mounds rattling their cages. So I think about this, Pat, and this has been an ongoing, tug of war with Major League Baseball and fans. Is one, I mean, the Dodgers are just smart at what they do because they have the right guys in place that go and find the guys. And they find them that knows they're going to get the guys that can play offensively and defensively, and also have the pitchers that can get through 6, 7 innings, throwing your setup at 8 and then close it at 9. So when I looked at this, I was talking to a bunch of former major leaguers, Logan Morrison and Jay Jackson. And the one thing is that the Dodgers found a way to manipulate the money situation with the deferred comp. They found a way, and every team could do this method if they tried. But to me, Kyle Tucker in that contract, I mean, that's $240 million. Toronto wanted $350 with a longer contract. And then you got Bo Bichette that the Phillies threw a long-term contract on, and then he goes to the Mets. Look, where is kind of the struggle right now that the fans aren't quite seeing with this? Because to me, my next question afterward will involve the salary cap. But to me, all 30 of these clubs could do it if they really could with their ownerships, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all a matter of spending the money. I mean, if you want to spend it, you don't. Well, you don't. The Dodgers have, they're the Yankees. Right? When I first started, it was the Yankees. We always used to laugh and say the Yankees could just beat you up with a checkbook, right?
Yeah.
That's all they had to do, especially in America, right? If you had a guy all lined up to sign in Latin America, Yankees swoop in with a checkbook and say, how much are they giving you? $100,000, 2. Okay. What are you going to do, right? You're going to take the 2. And so they didn't have to work harder than anybody else. They had to have that checkbook and beat us up. And the Dodgers are kind of turned into that, right? They're just running their payroll up, paying the taxes and all that scare all the other teams off of don't care. Their ownership's worth billions. They just win, right? Okay, well, sign him. Pay another $30 million in tax. Okay. Tampa Bay Rays whole payroll $79 million, right? They're not going to pay $30 million in tax money.
Yeah.
It's an playing field to a degree. Now in the amateur market, in the in Puerto Rico for the draft, I mean, it's, you can't do that, right? Because it's a draft. I mean, you have to have pole position, right? If I've got the pole position on you and I got the best player in Texas that I want to take, I pick ahead of you. Well, guess what? I'm going to get that guy and you're not, even though you might love him more than I do, because you can't do that. Like in the old days, draft came around in 1965, Yankees would just pay everybody because you could sign whoever you wanted to for whatever you wanted to, right? If it was like that now, it would be 3 teams in Major League Baseball and everybody else would be 4A, right? Because they go spend the money and just buy it all up. That's why they put the draft in, right? So you can't do that. You have to be better than the next. You have to be the next guy. And, that comes, frankly, school scouting, because you have to have boots on the ground. You have to know the players. You have to know the families. A spreadsheet can't know, that kid's work ethic. The spreadsheet can't know. And I have a degree in computer science, right? So I'm not opposed to it. Back in the 90s, I wrote the Astros' first computer scouting software back in 1990 to 92. So I wasn't, oblivious to all this stuff, how an algorithm works, right? I kind of have a handle on that. But tell me that a good or bad family situation. That can't tell me how hard he's going to work. It can't tell me, what's going to happen to this kid if all of a sudden he gets a bunch of money in his hands. Is he a free spirit? Is he a wild child? I mean, only way to know that is to have boots on the ground, an old school scout, a veteran before that's seen it and made, because I made a bunch of mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had a few successes along the way too, and you kind of learn from that. And these teams that are going out and just hiring young guys with no experience and giving them a list and say, hey, go write these 10, 15, 20, whatever guys up in your team. It's bad. I mean, they're going to have to rely on their crop system to make it to get things right.
Yeah. And, because this is interesting, because with the way in the state of Major League Baseball and where it's headed, and to me, it's like any of these clubs could try to utilize the method that the Dodgers are using. So when I think about this, the salary cap, to me, I'm on the side of this. If you put in a salary cap, here comes the lockout. Because to me, all it's going to benefit, it's going to benefit more of the owners than anything else. Because especially when you're looking at Washington, Pittsburgh, a lot of those teams that should be competing, in the money market. But even for some of the guys that they're not even signing that. Now, luckily, as I'm saying this, the Pirates go and sign, Marcell Ozuna. They go and sign up some of these guys to try to avoid that conversation. But here I am in Colorado, where you still are dealing with the horrible contract of Chris Bryant. And it's like, when are we going to move off this? And at least the Rockies get competitive, regardless of being in a division with the Dodgers. Because here's the thing, Pat, think about it. 25 years, only since the Dodgers' last World Series, there's only been 6 teams, maybe more than that, that were the number 1 team in baseball in all of it in 25 years. So it's like any of these teams that are in a competitive money market could do it. But should we honestly implement this salary cap? Because this has been an ongoing hand over fist conversation that's been happening.
Yeah, that conversation for a long time. And a salary cap would just benefit ownership. But, to come with that, the floor, right? You have to have a floor and a cap, right? And then, to eliminate arbitration, right? If you eliminated arbitration where those players like a Skubal, captive, I mean, he got paid, but that's 2-time Cy Young winner. But guys like that normally, they get the arbitration caps them. They might be worth more, but you eliminate arbitration and then a cap, and then some of those guys that become superstars fast don't have to deal with, the arbitration, like an Acuna, right? That flashed right on the scene as a star, right?
Yep.
Well, then he doesn't have to deal with arbitration. He's going to get paid market value, right? And that would drive the market to where those players would get paid, right? The ones that deserve to be paid would be paid. And then you'd have to be smart. You'd have to have a bunch of smart guys in the front office, right? Working on, what is it to do with this much money, where we best spent. So I can remember in the mid 90s, Jerry Hunsicker was my GM in Houston, and we had a very smart office. It was 4 of us, right? A couple of admin ladies that were super. 4 of us. So we did that, right? So Jerry Hunsicker came to me and said, hey, this is the mid 90s, right? This is before Moneyball, before anybody thought about any of this stuff, and said, what do we got to do to win? Well, and how many runs do we have to score to win a division? We have to score to win 90 games, right? That research didn't take long, right? Even back in those days, we could file that up. Okay, how do we score 90 runs? Yeah. So we were working on how do we put together a roster that can score how many runs it was, I forget the number now, to win 90 games, because 90 games would normally win you the division, right, or get you in the. So we started doing that in the mid 90s, right? So that wasn't that again, sell something, right? They're selling themselves, they're selling this, they got to a lot of promoters and that, but we've been doing that forever. So if you had a cap and a floor, no arbitration, then you could figure out, okay, what kind of roster do we put together to win 90 games, and where's I spent to make that 90 games happen, right? Is that, what do I budget for an outfielder, an outfielder? What do I budget for what do I, starting pitching? Work from there and go from there. And it can be done.
Yeah.
But, the union's going to scream about a cap, and they're going to, like they always have, they're going to scream. But the consolation you're going to have to give up is probably eliminate arbitration, because that holds the superstar players back early and gives the club the advantage, sticking their feet into the fire of not being able to get paid. They should, like statistically, arbitration has always been a disaster. In my opinion, that's
a great point. That's a great point. I've never thought of that before until you brought it up. That's a great point. I really, like, to me, it's like I'm all about competitiveness from all 30 clubs, but I understand that there's the difficulty on that side. But that makes a great point with the arbitration, because that does kind of serve as that roadblock for some teams, to where it's like, look, you can already give this kid a length term contract because you already know he's already in here in this league and he's on that rookie deal, and then he's going to get that big bucks. And so if you could eliminate that and then find a way for, other teams to really be competitive in that market, then maybe that can, balance out the landscape. So that's something worth tapping into. I'll have to look a little more on that, but that's a great point. I appreciate you for bringing up that. Appreciate you, Pat, for joining on by, man. 30 years of MLB scouting, and you know what? I give you a lot of props. Even in the new technology stuff, you're still sticking to your guns. You still see exactly where the talent holds and still building upon it. Even with the 3 World Series championships, you know exactly how to build them and you know where to find them, man. Appreciate you for coming on by.
Yeah, don't be afraid to call over there to your buddies in Denver, and if they need a good old that's sitting around watching TV, they can call me right up.
Hey, there you go. Hey, I'll put in a good word for it right for there for sure.
Good word. All right.
Take care, man.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Man, how about that? Listen, that's 30 years. That's 30 years of great work. And the thing is, I never thought of that. I really never thought of that at all, of just, the arbitration, because that makes a lot of sense. And so I'd have to dig more research up onto that, but that's a great point. Wow. But you got to think about it. I mean, to me, I look at it this way. I think that if we do that, and he's right, when it comes to a floor and when it comes to an actual cap, that is something that is worth discussing about. So really loved having Pat Murphy up and on here. And then finally, our best guest, who now I can call Coach, up and on here onto the program, former NFL defensive end Dion Jordan comes up here on the program. I got to ask you, the name of Coach that now comes up and into mind, man, how does that got to feel for you,
It's a huge blessing. Definitely a huge blessing. I'm ready. I'm up for the task, but I feel blessed to have that opportunity to be called head coach and work with these boys.
So I will tell you, to kind of start with, your alma mater in Oregon. So not quite the story they wanted, but I love what Dan Lanning's doing. I mean, the Big Ten is physical and it's competitive. And I think with Dante Moore coming back, yes, Dylan Raiola is here, but at least he's here for the right reasons. He's learning, he's building, and then eventually will get that opportunity to be a starting quarterback. But with Oregon, they needed some physicality. They needed a lot of shutdown, and they produced a lot of really good players. So, you watch Indiana win the national title but you still got your Ohio States, your Michigans. With Oregon, I feel like they're taking exactly the steps where they're trying to build up and eventually to where Dan Lanning can look at and go, this here is the team that can compete and will eventually win this national title. What did you make of it from Oregon this year?
I seen a lot of the same things, man. I had a chance to go to the spring game, and look at a lot of the guys that they've bought in. And you're 100% correct. Them guys are giants on both sides of the ball, offensive line, defensive line, and they playmakers. You've seen the way that they competed, and on the defensive line, they made plays, offensive line by protecting their quarterback, Dante Moore, and giving him the opportunity, to be as successful as he is. So I think he's doing it. I know he's doing the right thing, right? The other half of it I seen and been noticing is him having that, like, the ability to keep a lot of the guys there. So even Dante Moore, like, them guys get that chance to mature, learn the game, and play at, like, with the reason why they went to Oregon, playing big time games, and it's no substitute for that to prepare you for the next league, to the next level, going to the league. So all of those things, I see he got the place going in the right direction. And above all, he mentions why he's there. So being a former player or a fan, to hear your head coach, be very, like, strict and understanding about what his expectations are, and that's winning the national championship. That, you can't ask for nothing better than that.
So the Pac-12 is reviving, and now that we have new teams going into here, and also a birth of, a basketball program that now has a football program in Gonzaga. So
Yeah.
you played in this conference in the Pac-12, and now seeing, Oregon get a little bit more beefed up and buttoned up in the Big Ten. Do you ever notice during your playing tenure in college where you saw the difference of play style and scheme, from Pac-12 versus SEC in the Big Ten? Was there ever a big difference that stood out to you?
100%, man. We played Wisconsin. We had to play Auburn. We played LSU. They play different football in those leagues, for sure, 100%. And Dan Lanning come from that. So he understood, what those other conferences have done, those other coaches have done, and he's looking to bring that out west. So I seen the change. Us, when we were in school, we had some very good quarterbacks in the pack. So those boys, they were putting up numbers on not just Oregon, but all of them. So I think that was a difference. But yeah, it's they do it a lot different in the Big Ten than, the pack.
So in the NFL, because we got a lot of stories now. So first and foremost, the Seattle Seahawks crowned as champions.
Right.
You've been a part of this culture, and it's a strong. The Pacific Northwest, they love their teams between the Seahawks, the Mariners, and now you've got hockey with the Kraken. And, shall we see the return of the Supersonics at some point? But when I look at Seattle, what I loved about this Super Bowl, and I was just talking with former players and former defensive players, when I watched this game, lots of fans, as you already know, were already jumping the gun and saying, man, this is boring as all hell. There's no running up the scores. But what I saw, Dion, was I saw a classic chess game matchup between both these coaches and the teams. And I thought the defenses gave it 110% on both sides. What did you think of that?
I felt the same way. Even going in, like, before the game, like, you got quarterbacks of those two statures. Some go have to, somebody on either side of the ball will have to show up. And they both showed up big time, especially at the beginning of that game or that first half. So it was very exciting to see. I was rooting for somebody on the defensive side to become MVP. It just so happened to running back, he had a hell of a game, and ended up pulling that off. But I enjoy seeing it. I truly enjoy seeing it. Yeah, just the Patriots, they just couldn't stop the run. That was the one thing that they couldn't do, and it just went the other way for the Seahawks. And you're right, man. The Northwest, when it comes to fans, hands down, they're some of the best ever. Like, me having that opportunity to play in Oregon and Washington, the state of Washington, yeah, I had a chance to experience it firsthand. And they're some of the best. They are.
So to your team that drafted you in Miami, so there's obviously news already broke out in today and yesterday. So they're making some serious changes. There's a new sheriff in town with Jeff Hafley as the head coach. defensive minded. To me, I'm not sure what I may get with Miami, but to me personally, I want to see some brute force. I want to see physicality because, I mean, you're in South Beach, it's bikini season 24/7. I want to see some treads in those Lamborghinis, so that way I'm durable. I can get through the stuff. So they let go of Bradley Chubb and Tyreek Hill and a couple of others. I feel like this is changing up a bit to where the identity, you can see it as defensive. When you look at Miami, I mean, they have some pieces. They got a great run game with Devon Achane, and they've even got Jalen Waddle as the receiver. So I feel if they could figure out quarterback-wise and even figure out a little more of the defense, even with the secondaries, Dion, and then I can actually see, because you got New England already turning around the page, Buffalo still being competitive, and then who knows with the Jets. But Miami doesn't want to be behind the curve when they figure this out, right?
Oh, man, I hope not. That division and alone, it only take one player, the way I feel about that division, to completely make a change. I don't know for the Dolphins whether it's going to be a defense or an offensive player. I really don't. I have no clue, but seeing guys like Chubb leave and Tyreek Hill, it's obvious that they're looking to make a change. Maybe last year, the last few years, they were kind of all in to try to push for that Super Bowl push or the deep playoff run. It's something. Things are changing now. You feel me? As a former player, I just want to. I would say they just bring in somebody that the fans love, somebody that the fans support. Because the thing about Miami and South Beach itself, man, once they get people that the fans are behind, you're going to see it. It's going to change. It's really going to change. So I don't care if it's a defensive player or offensive player. I would want them to target a guy that that the fans want to see out there, and that's going to put on a show for them boys on Sundays. So yeah, that's the way I see the Dolphins, at least.
Yeah, it should be interesting this upcoming off season, and we'll see what they address up from here to shake things up in the AFC East. Two questions here for you before letting you go. Number one is, so new coaching hire, and I'm actually very optimistic about this one. But Clint Kubiak to the Raiders. Now, fortunately, you played here in Oakland and before going up and into Vegas. Yeah. So to me, this Raiders organization needs something different. They need a change. And to me, I feel like Clint Kubiak, offensive-minded, but somebody that also is sticking to the old school, but then bringing in the new school technologies. So they got the number one overall pick. They got plenty of money to spend. It feels to me like they're going to go after Fernando Mendoza. I kind of say otherwise because I look at the offensive line, I look at a few pieces, but then there's also the chatters of Max Crosby not quite being happy with this organization. To me, I said it like this previously on the show. I should do what Pittsburgh should have done before the season started. Because if TJ Watt was going to get big money, I should have moved off that, get some draft capital, and get money flexed up over. Then go and get Abdul Carter as the draft pick because you're not paying him much for 3 or 4 years. And then you can fix up the offensive line. I got to get some firepower because everybody wants to put up 25 plus points a game. So now with the Raiders, I got to get in some more players. I got to get more juice in this building. So what do you think of this? And can he be the be all, not the be all end all, but really be the catalyst that can help with this culture change that's been needing it for years, Dion?
Yeah, man. The Raiders definitely need some type of revitalization. Man, you know what, dude? Like, so when I watch football now, I usually watch players that I still know that are playing, coaches that have coached me. I got a relationship with Max. So Max and I, we played together. I was with him as a rookie, and we got the same agent. So I knew Max, right? I want Max to win. The Raiders don't want Max to leave. They better not let Max go nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way I feel, man. I root hard for the guy. the dude he one of a kind type of football player. So I mean, if I'm a Raider, I'm like, do whatever to make Max Crosby happy. Period.
Yeah.
Period. You know, like, yeah, he's a one of a kind type of football player. Pass rush, stopping the run, the effort to run down the football, his football IQ. The guy played linebacker when he was in high school. This guy is see how big he is. He played linebacker when he was in college. Like, the dude is, I'm a Max Crosby fan. So I'm rooting whatever Max need, the Raiders should give it to him. Give it to him. So, yeah.
I'll tell you what, yeah, because to me, the Raiders, like they need something positive up into this organization. And the last thing that you need to lose is a guy that brings in a ton of heart, brings in a lot of hard work. And the minute you lose that juice, now it's all changed up. Now you're looking around and going, who's going to be my vocalist now in this locker room? So,
Really?
yeah, hopefully they'll figure this out at a good time. But, so I'm looking at San Francisco, and with Kyle Shanahan, there's a lot of things that we know they're going to patch up. So, one, they lose Robert Saleh to go to Tennessee. I'm excited about that one. I think a second go around at a better environment and a better organization, in my opinion, when you think about the structure build and what they're due. But San Francisco, they bring in, and I called this immediately. I was like, watch San Francisco somehow, some way get Raheem Morris for a reason, because they knew they needed a defensive mind. So with San Francisco throughout this season, the quote unquote easy schedule, everybody kept calling it, didn't look so easy the minute that you're in there. And I mean, you played in this league. Everything's inevitable. Everything's on the table. So San Francisco was fighting tooth and nail, different quarterbacks, different defensive pass rushes. With San Francisco, this is an interesting offseason because they don't want that window to close for them to potentially get back in the Super Bowl. Like, what are kind of the things they got to do?
Man, stay healthy. I think that's it, really. You know, they have John Lynch there, you know, pulling strings. John Lynch is very good at what he does. So for some reason, I have I don't doubt John Lynch at all. But they loaded. I mean, you still got these guys that they just aren't healthy, right? So the Niners are still loaded. Man, I don't know. I know John Lynch. John Lynch himself, man, is a hell of a GM. He relates well with those football players that he has. He has great relationships with them. So I don't see them having too much of an issue outside of just finding a way to stay healthy. You know, them boys work hard. I remember being down there with Coach Shanahan. And Shanahan works hard, like every day is real deal Holyfield. By the way them boys practice. So it shows the way the success has been for them boys. So just finding a way to keep them healthy and, yeah, keep them out there on the field, really.
So your experience on the field is now very impactful, and being a part of a coaching staff of youngsters in a D3 school. And tell me more about it, Dion, because it's an exciting opportunity to build these kids up and, building a culture, the one that you're putting in the body of work, but then at the same time, you're making a difference in your life to whatever life, your life path has before you, and where it may take you. So talk to me a lot about that, from transitioning from the player on the field to now being a part of the coaching staff, and what you guys instill as far as all together as a whole with the chemistry and what that's going to build, because that's exciting to be coaching around these kids.
Nah, it really is, man. Football is in my blood. And essentially, that's pretty much how I got into the coaching thing, right? When I initially retired and going back home to Arizona, just going to my younger cousins' youth league games, and from watching it from the stands to getting closer and closer to the field, then I ended up just jumping over the fence, getting out there with the young boys. To Randy Starks giving me the call not too long after that to come here and come work at Eureka College. Football is in my blood, so that part was easy. It's so easy for me to come around and do the football things. I think what I was truly needed, like what you were mentioning, like my next life path was that, right? So getting back into ball was me finishing school, was me figuring out the things I wanted to do with my nonprofit as far as helping people outside of sport, just, you know, being a good humanitarian and working with my family to do those type of things, and just growing as a man, right? And setting these large goals. So that's what coming back to the game has truly done for me, right? And all of the things that I've went through as a young man, and the things that were instilled in me to help me get back on path, where even when things were going right when I was a young man, it's so much had to go right for many people to make it to those leagues, right? So much has to go right. So I do have a upbringing, a very good upbringing, and people raised me right. So I try to take a lot of these things and instill them in these kids. For me, it's a joy to be around them. You feel me? Because it keeps me young, it keeps me live. You feel me? I still got the juice, so I bring it and I give it to the guys. And yeah, like I truly want to see them succeed, man. Not only myself, but I got coaches here. Our offensive coordinator, our Coach Ramses, our defensive line coach, Coach Patrick Jordan. You know, these dudes, they was bigger than football for them. So me coming in and working with these guys, it's like it makes it easier. It makes it fun coming to work because we all on the same page of what we want to get done and get accomplished. And I challenge my boys. I kind of put it like, you know, you got your professors over there on that side of campus, and then you got us over here, right? We want you to get a degree in football as well while you're here. We want you to get better. You know what I mean? I want you to leave here and be able to talk ball with your friends, and like the same way you're having these conversations with a lot of these brilliant sports minds. Like I want them to have to truly understand what they're talking about and say that they got something from us while we were here, man. On top of the degree, and you know, us being able to set them up for what they have truly lined up for themselves after football. So that's
Man, I absolutely love that, man, and continuing your future endeavors in this, man, and you know, there's a lot of youngsters that watch this show, and they love the stories, you know, from a lot of these former players to do what they did on the field, and then finding ways to give back and to build it even further, and to be able to be in that position and sharing that experience with these young kids. Man, that's a once in a lifetime feeling. But then at the same time, it's gearing them towards for whatever life comes at them. And whether it be a future pro or whether it be, you know, a different pathway of life, you know, you're teaching them a lot of those curves. And so I really do wish the best of luck for you and the coaching staff through it, and hope the kids, man, because that's always fun. I'm now a newborn, you know, I got a newborn son after 4 weeks, and I can't wait to be in that role, to be, you know, coach him up, learn a lot. Of course, I'm going to get the best sports-minded guys that have been there, done that. But at the same time, I love to be around in that environment and be able to show them a lot of the ropes, you know, and then build them up to what real life's got for them.
absolutely, man. That's what it's about. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Dion, appreciate you for coming on by, man, and sharing a lot of your story and especially what you're doing now. Really hope the best of luck for you and the kids up out there. Good luck. And may you guys have a strong and very competing season this upcoming year, man.
We appreciate it. Definitely, we appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Take care of yourself.
Yep.
Good luck out there, guys.
Later.
Oh, man, you got to love it. I love that. That's the best story right up from there, man. Just being able to, you know, blocking out a lot of, you know, not just being an NFL star, but at the same time, you're a human being. And many of these athletes, and what fans don't realize, you know, behind closed doors is, you know, many of them, they have a different calling. And many of them, it's a blessing, man. So, and it's great. It really is great to give back and really just to show what it's all about. And that's what I love so much about the show, more than particular, because of the fact of it's not only just, you know, for myself, you know, chasing for my future dream, but at the same time, it's showing them what it's truly all about and how it really works. Because many people don't get a chance to talk about that. And so that's the other best thing too. Really appreciate everybody for being here up and onto the show. We had a stacked lineup and I enjoyed every minute of it. Shout out to Tyler Johnson, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. Shout out to MLB Scout for 30 years, Pat Murphy. And shout out to former defensive end, Dion Jordan, for being here and up and onto the program and making the show what it's all about. Appreciate all of you guys for joining us. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. See you later, everyone.